We're going to talk about gut health today. Disclaimer, all information given about health conditions, treatment products, and dosages are for educational purpose only and do not constitute a medical advice. And this is me with the Institute of Functional Medicine in one of the conferences. And the learning objectives today are identifying the key role of GI tract and recognize how dysregulation can lead to systemic illness. And we're going to talk about the gut testing. I'm going to tell you like how to keep the gut healthy naturally. Several years ago, Hippocrates said, all diseases begin in gut. The more we learn, the more we agree with this. 70% of Americans have digestive related issues. And why are we focusing only on the gut? Dysregulation of the GI system has profound impact on body. GI system is the center node of the complex web of functional medicine. Then most effective clinical outcomes across all the disease spectrum come from normalization of your gut function. You all know that. I know that I'm preaching to the choir here. And vice versa is true. Gut is the most sensitive organ that takes common insults. This is our gut, basically. You all know it is a 20 feet long tube. What we fill this tube with has a direct effect on your well-being. It is not just about eating healthy. The food we ingest need to be digested and absorbed and eliminated properly. It is, even if you eat, if you don't have a good absorption and assimilation, then that will go waste, even if you're eating a super healthy diet. So we need to focus more on toxins, elimination, everything. So our genes are 10,000 years old genes. So change in the diet in the past 100 years has created discord with the nutritional input that our genetic structure has evolved to maximize. Signs and symptoms of unhealthy gut: flatulence, diarrhea, constipation, indigestion. Some people even come with chronic belly aches, because sometimes it could be a silent in the gut, and we have like even mental health conditions. They all improve once we treat the gut. To assess the imbalance in your gut, this is an acronym: DIGIN. D is for digestion. So digestion starts in your mouth. Poor chewing and rushed eating and lack of hydrochloric acid, bile salt insufficiency, and enzyme insufficiency, and lack of fiber. All these things can lead to the poor digestion. Saliva contains several enzymes. Digestion of food starts here. It breaks down sugars that are further digested in your small intestine. And intestinal permeability. These are the enterocytes. These are the cells that line the gut in a single layer. The lifespan of these cells is only 2 to 3 days. So then they die off, and gut eliminates them. These cells are replaced by new ones. These cells are regenerated much quicker than any other cells in our body. For the regeneration of these cells, you need building blocks. These building blocks are nutrients, amino acids, enzymes, vitamins, minerals, and a lot of them are necessary. So if you don't provide all these nutrients to the lining, then it's not going to regenerate properly. So some patients that I have, like who had this problem for years, they take several months. So some recover very quickly once you remove that whatever they are sensitive to. So it varies from patient to patient. That's why it is important to keep our overall health. This is our gut lining. This slide gives us a lot of information here. So this is a leaky gut on the right side, and the left side is a healthy gut. So on the healthy gut, you can see this is a single layer lining that I just talked, and this blue one is like a mucus layer. So this mucus layer is basically a protective layer, and in fact feeds the bacteria, everything here. This is the lumen of our gut. So when you have leaky gut or food sensitivities or certain bad bacteria, they eat up this mucus layer. And the food sensitivity is also because of all the bad enzymes that are secreted. This mucus layer will be gone. So then you can see it, all this single layer lining, this is the leaky gut. You can see all the red cells and it is leaking. So here, because of whatever is in the lumen, is now our immune system is not sensing here. But once it leaks into inside, then the blood and immune system gets alerted. They're like, oh my God, there's something entering here. It's not supposed to be here, right? So even undigested food gets inside because of the leaky gut. So then you get the immune activation, all this molecular mimicry, then they go and attack our own cells. Each person reacts differently to this leaky gut. This is the third topic we're talking. We just finished intestinal permeability in the dig-in. And microbiome. What is gut microbiome? There are like 4 different kinds of microbiomes. So one is like a probiotic, which we all know. It is a good bacteria. And there is a other bacteria called commensal bacteria. So these commensal bacteria are normal bacteria. They are not good or bad, but they just stay. And some bacteria are dysbiotic bacteria. So the dysbiotic bacteria, in a normal count, they're actually okay. They're not that bad. Only when the numbers go up, that's when we have a problem with them. And pathogenic bacteria, even if they are in normal, even small numbers, they're still bad for our body. Immune function. 70% of the immune system is located in the digestive system. About 35 to 50 tons of food we drink in our lifetime. We eat and drink in a lifetime. So immune system tolerates this foreign material 99% of the time. It is known as oral tolerance. It differentiates friend from the foe. It starts the detoxification. If it is out of balance, it creates inflammation. So next one, let's talk about the last one, nervous system. So enteric nervous system, this is often called the second brain. So because it has mind of its own, it is connected to the brain through a nerve called vagus nerve. So 3/4 of the neurotransmitters, interestingly, 3/4 of them are produced in the gut. They're not produced in the brain, because if there is any neurological problem, they're coming from the gut. Especially 90% of the serotonin is produced in the gut. So brain and gut constantly communicate through this highway called the vagus nerve. When you're stressed out, there's a bacterial imbalance. It really doesn't take that long. Even within hours, within days, you will develop the bacterial imbalance when you're stressed. If you go for mind-body therapies, such as CBT, meditation, relaxation techniques, biofeedback, they all help with the IBS. You must have heard all the studies, several studies that showed that they help with IBS. This is basically a slide that's showing the function of the gut. This is a communication. This is a neuroendocrine function. And immune and defense, the detoxification here, as they go out, it is elimination process, is the detoxification. Leaky gut does have a genetic predisposition. These are the triggers of the GI tract. The poor diet. Nowadays, like a lot of people eat the food from outside, or it is all packed foods. Not that many people eat the healthy diet. I know a lot of people in this group don't have that problem, but in general, if you take general population, a lot of my patients tell me, surprisingly, they said, we don't even go into our kitchen. I'm like, oh my goodness, how can I teach these people, like, how to cook? It's very difficult. That's why I'm going to have, in fact, culinary classes in my blog, and I'm going to have the newsletter. If anybody is interested, you can, sign up for that website, Root Health MD. So you will get the invitation for all my classes. Stress, as I discussed, is a major trigger of the gut imbalances. Why? Because when you're stressed out, your autonomic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, that is one of the autonomic nervous system, is activated. Sympathetic system is a fight or flight system, and parasympathetic system is a healing system. They both are like seesaw. If you activate the sympathetic system, the parasympathetic system will not work. So the stress, we have to cut down the stress to keep everything in balance. It starts in the gut. And the infection, as I discussed, there could be several infections, pathogenic infections, that are like food poisonings, or there's some parasites. There could be many other dysbiotic excess amount of the bacteria. There's some infections like H. pylori. If they sit in the gut, it can trigger infections. And the medications, you all know NSAIDs, the pain medications that we take, and And the toxins that are created by the bacteria or environmental toxins or heavy metals, all these things damage your gut. And the food allergies. The people with the leaky gut tend to have more food allergies. We used to have the regular food allergy testing, but nowadays I do a lot of food zoomer testing, which is much more advanced food allergy testing. So that gives a lot more information. And the stomach acid, this is very important. We don't really take stomach acid that seriously, in my opinion. A lot of my patients, once I give the treatment to stimulate their stomach acid, they improve so many of their symptoms, interestingly. And when you are in stress, the stomach, the first thing body does is it shuts down your acid production, because that is not, when you are in a sympathetic mode, body puts all its focus on releasing the hormones, like, that help you to get out of the situation, and like adrenaline and all these hormones. And it is not a priority for your body to digest your food. So the food digestion is down. That's why your stomach acid is not there. But in reality, we are not dealing with a stress where you have to jump out from a tiger. Nowadays, we are dealing with a stress that's everyday stress. We don't need all those hormones, but body releases all those hormones. That's how it is programmed. Undigested food attracts the bad bacteria. And then there's bad bacteria, undigested food goes into the small bowel where it's supposed to be absorbed. Then it creates inflammation, leaky gut, bad bacteria gets there. All these problems happen when you don't have acid. And a lot of systemic diseases are the triggers. Diet and all these are triggers. Here, what happens when you have the triggers? There are gut flora disturbances and there is inflammation. Then you have local symptoms like flatulence, bloating, anyway, constipation, things like that. And then there is a disruption of the mucosal barrier, then increased permeability. And what happens is bacterial toxins and everything goes inside. It's called a translocation. Then once they go inside our blood, there is a lot of immune reactions, and that leads to systemic illness. I know this is a busy slide. I hope I explained it well. And this one, gut dysregulation, leads to molecular mimicry. Molecular mimicry is where a foreign antigen, the antigens from the bacteria or from the foods, they have similar sequence or structural similarities with the self antigens. So, which means, for example, if you eat dairy products, like a lot of people have dairy insensitivity nowadays. Our brain or our nervous system could have the same sequences, and every time you have the dairy, then when the immune system senses it, most of the time it can recognize it. But when there is any autoimmune propensity, or sometimes the immune system could be weak, then it goes, instead of attacking, in addition to attacking the food, it goes and attacks the structure inside our body that has got the similar sequences. So that's when, recently I had a guy who came for actually health, just regular checkup. He wanted to stay healthy. And while I was, he didn't mention any symptoms, but when I did his neurological testing, because he wanted all the tests done, so then it showed that his body was attacking his nerve sheath. I was quite surprised to see such a high number. And then I asked him, do you have any complaints, any neurological symptoms, memory or anything? Then he was telling me that, oh, I have a little shaking in my hand, which he didn't even mention. I thought it was okay, goes away. Then he had severe milk sensitivity. Then I stopped whatever other couple of other sensitivities too. Then when I stopped all these things, his shaking was gone. Imagine like how beautiful it is and how easy it is to fix symptoms like this. And if he had gone to traditional doctor, they would have given some medicine for the shakes, but the root cause is never discovered. That is not there, unfortunately, in the system. So I truly encourage, this type of medicine will evolve, and more doctors will get trained in this type of medicine. So that this actually prevents unnecessary treatments patients are getting. And the common GI conditions like acid reflux, indigestion, irritable bowel syndrome, colitis, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, GERD or acid reflux is like a fascinating topic because this actually comes from the low acid. In fact, when you have low acid, you attract more of the bad bacteria, indigestion that opens the sphincter between the food pipe and the stomach in a wrong direction. So the acid leaks back into the esophagus. The lining of the esophagus is not designed for to take the acid. That's when you get the acid reflux. So the problem is less acid, but the medications that are given nowadays for the acid reflux are proton pump inhibitors, which in fact block the acid. That's temporarily giving the relief, but in fact, it is not fixing the root cause, it's making it worse. So the detox system, sometimes, when you have too many bacteria there, you're overloading your detox system. The bacterial antigens are like toxins to us. So they're called LPS. In one of the tests that we do, which is like a wheat zoomer, we even check the number of the LPS. When we treat the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, we can track it, like whether the bacteria are cleared, how your LPS is, and how your immune system is reacting to it. Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This is my favorite diagnosis because I see a lot of patients with it in my clinic. And SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Here, this is the small intestine, and this one is the large intestine. So the small intestine is for the digestion, absorption of all the food. Here the food gets digested, and the fiber that is left after the absorption goes to the large intestine. So the large intestine is beautifully programmed by Mother Nature to expand because the bacteria produce gas. So you really don't feel that much pain when this part expands. But here, if bacteria gets into the small intestine, there's several reasons. It's beyond this topic here today. Then when it expands, the gas is produced here. When the small intestine expands, then you will have bloating and pain, all those symptoms. So we don't want the bacteria here, but there are beautiful breath tests that can tell us whether there's any bacteria sitting there. So these are all the tests we do for the gut testing. Like a food allergy testing is actually gives a lot of information about how your gut is functioning. And stool test, we have stool test, and we have breath test, like I told you, for the small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And there's a test called organic acid testing that also tells us a lot of information because the bacteria, they produce a lot of acids that we measure in your urine to see whether there's any fungi, mold, or bacteria. That this is organic acid testing is a beautiful test that gives us a lot of information just by looking at the acids in your urine. Isn't that fascinating? And this is a stool analysis. When we do the stool analysis, then we look at the digestive and absorptive markers. There's something called elastase, fat stain. If you have like a less elastase, it's telling that your digestive function is not good. And if there is more fat in your stool, that's also telling us that your fat is not digested. So things like bile acid, and they're not produced properly. And if there's any muscle fiber is supposed to be digested and absorbed, right? Or a vegetable fiber, it says that there is a problem with the digestion. And so we look at the microbiome, we look at the bile acids, and even the pH of the stool to give us some information, like, it should be between 6.1 to 7.9. And this is the sample report of the stool analysis. Maybe it's difficult for you to understand. I don't know whether you can see, I'm zooming it in. So you can look at all this. If it's in the red zone, that is abnormal, and we want everything to be in the green zone. And the treatment, when it comes to the treatment, we have, it's called 5R approach. So first, we remove the things that we don't want in the gut, which are like, nutrient depleted food. That is the common thing. That's the number one thing we have to remove and replace that with nutrient rich food. And we have to remove the medications that are damaging, and we have to remove the foods. I didn't put that in, but all the foods that you're sensitive to or allergic to. So how do we know? Because we cannot do any guesswork. You have to test it, and so you can target the treatment plans very easily when you do the testing. And the replace, what do you have to replace? You have to replace the nutrients, and you have to replace the enzymes if you don't have enough enzymes. If you see too much fat in that stool testing, then you have to give the bile acids. And that's how there are a lot of combination of these capsules that come, right? Depending on what your deficiency, we pick the combination and give that pill to the patient. And also we educate on the lifestyle changes, which can help them maintain the healthy life after they stop the supplements. Then repopulate. You give the probiotics and prebiotics. Nowadays, there are two kinds of probiotics, spore-based and the regular probiotics. Initially, I start with the spore-based and then add the other probiotics also. That's again beyond this topic. So repair, how do you repair it? You have to give things like L-glutamine and some herbs helps with the repair. So there's a lot of repair protocols. And then rebalance, that is very important. Like I told you, sleep, stress, and your belief systems, they're all so important to rebalance. Pay attention to the lifestyle, cut down the stress, incorporate stress relieving techniques such as deep breathing, meditation, improve your sleep habits. Tips to improve your gut health. These are the lifestyle changes. Intermittent fasting. I'm like a big fan of this intermittent fasting. I recently wrote an ebook on fasting. If you would like to get the ebook, please go to my website, roothealthmd.com, or you can send me an email, which I have in my last slide, saila@roothealthmd.com. I'll send you that ebook for you. And intermittent fasting is like a fascinating topic, and I have like a 1 hour presentation on intermittent fasting, which I'm not going to say it here. You can read it all about it. So it's about eating window of 6 to 7 hours. I would recommend, if you are doing the intermittent fasting, you do it for at least 4 days in a week. So what I personally do, what I have been doing all my life, is like a full day fasting. Once every 2 weeks I do it. I do it for a religious reason, but it helps me a lot. For anybody who want to lose weight, this is the best thing you could do, is fasting before you control the carbs. But of course that is also necessary, but the fasting is number one in my opinion. And take some ginger, it improves the motility, and curcumin is anti-inflammatory, and it heals. Curcumin does so many things, good things for us. And cook with herbs, like, we don't do that nowadays. Herbs are like amazing things. They can heal your body. So things like thyme, cilantro, or the basil. In summertime, I have so much basil in my garden. In fact, I freeze it and then dry these herbs, and I use it all through the winter. Whatever I use is just coming from my garden all through the year. These are all the things that I recommend for the gut motility. You stop the pain pills, take some water, and eat the food with fiber and some ginger. And this is my drink, actually, the one I made. It is called Swizzle. I'm sure Betty probably has it in her book. It's basically made with ginger water. I just boil the water and add the ginger and close it, and don't boil the ginger, okay? Add apple cider vinegar, lemon juice, a little bit of lemon juice, and a little honey if you want it sweet. This is kefir. If you don't have dairy sensitivity, this is the best way of getting the probiotic. And this one is natto. You probably know it. This is a fermented soybean. The reason I'm showing natto is this has got different probiotics than the other probiotics. And this one contains a lot of vitamin called K2. I know Betsy was talking about the vitamin D there, but the K2 direct your calcium into the right places. Like, when you take vitamin D, it absorbs more calcium into your system. But we don't want this calcium to go into your blood vessels and give you heart attack or something, but we want this calcium to go to your bones. And these are just a fermented rice, that I had. These are the fermented oats. When I go out for vacations, I really don't like the breakfast, there, except for the fruits, because I'm gluten-free. So I take my own oatmeal breakfast and a little bit of yogurt, and just put the yogurt in a water and put the oatmeal. By next morning, it's just like a cooked oatmeal. And this is the kombucha that I make it at home. I have like 2 beautiful videos on kombucha on my YouTube channel. A lot of views and comments on those videos, and it's I really love it, because I know there is a kombucha available in the stores, but when I make it, the flavors that I make in this kombucha are not available in any store. My favorite flavor is ginger and lemon, and I add a little bit of curry leaf in the ginger and lemon. That's why it gives a very distinct flavor that I just love. This is a fermented apple, sauerkraut. When I make sauerkraut, I put both purple and green cabbage. Then it is just a day one. That's why otherwise, the whole thing looks purple by 3 days. So the sauerkraut is the best way of giving antioxidants, probiotics, fiber, so many good things with the sauerkraut. I think everyone should eat at least a couple of tablespoons of sauerkraut every day. It helps with the digestion of other food also. Like I said, nowadays, because of all the stress that we are having, the production of acid in general, I think, is down when you feel like you're stressed out. The sauerkraut has acid in it, so that helps with the digestion. That's why. So that's it for today. Exactly in 1 hour, I completed it 7 o'clock. I know we have some time for Q&A, but so you can go ahead. This is my information here. This
Well,
is my website.
you've been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And now are you so kind as to answer questions for people? And if we can view the gallery, and you just need to, since we can't see all of you, just speak up and give your name and ask your question, and just realize that one person at a time, because I can't see you.